Ang MacBook, kailangan niya ng natural light. Pag
Ah,
'di ba
oo.
like ko sinasabi sa inyo yan, pag hindi natural ng light or pag against the light ka,
Alis, patuloy
medyo
tayo.
malabo,
Text
malabo tingnan.
Better na ba to?
Oo.
Ito, better na. Sige.
It's actually
Okay, okay naman, normal.
mas normal siya kaysa
Parang hindi
kanina.
naman siya satisfied.
Parang yung camera sa
Pagalitan na siya.
Quiapo, parang yung mga Logitech na webcam. mga ganun.
Talaga?
Hindi,
Wapak-
ano kasi, open your ilaw.
Hindi, okay lang yun, Ina. Okay na yan,
Maliwanag
promise.
Nakasarado kasing curtain niya.
Oo,
Maliwanag pa kasi.
Oo,
Kaya
okay
parang
lang yan.
yung yung natural light na madilim.
This is Regin's Travels podcast.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Regin's Travels podcast. Joining us today are my friends and colleagues when we were still working and living in Beijing, China. We have lived in Beijing for over 5 years. In this episode, we're going to discuss what it is like living in Beijing and talk about this Chinese capital as a travel destination. Okay, hello guys, welcome to the show.
hello.
All right, before we start, may you please introduce yourselves to our listeners.
Hi everyone. This is so weird. I'm the first one. So yes, my name is Ruby. I have been in the education industry for 15 years now. Half of that almost half of that, 7 years, 6.5 years. I lived with these folks in Beijing with my family also. But last year we came back home to the Philippines. So yeah, right now I'm team leading a group of teachers here and abroad. So yeah, that's exciting. Hello.
Hi, I'm Summer, and I've lived in Beijing for about almost 6 years. And I was with my son when we were in Beijing. And right now we are in Texas. And I'm a homemaker. I stay at home to take care of my kid and my husband.
Ooh, Texas barbecue.
Yeehaw.
How's the barbecue there in Texas?
It's good. And
How's it
also,
good?
it's very hot.
Were you able to try it already?
Yeah, quite a few times. But actually, in Texas, Mexican food is really, really good.
Oh yeah, especially they call it I think Tex-Mex. Is that Tex-Mex? Something like that.
I don't know.
Have you heard about the
But
term?
the food is really
Yes, it's
Yeah.
called Tex-Mex.
Yeah, it's like a fusion of Texas and Mexican
Mexican
food, something
food.
like that.
Hi, I'm Siggey. I stayed in Beijing for 6.5 years. So, of course, we taught English in Beijing. Yes, and now I live in Shanghai. So, I've been teaching here for almost a year now. There, yes. And my
You live
favorite
in Shanghai.
Chinese food in Beijing, of course, is the Beijing duck.
Hi, my name is Inah. I lived in Beijing for 6 years as an English teacher. Now I'm currently in Shanghai with Siggey. We are teaching young kids in Shanghai right now.
Beijing is such an amazing destination, an amazing city to live. I remember going there for the first time in 2014, and during my first time arriving in that city, I immediately loved the city. The vibe is kind of like, for me, I felt like there's like a European vibe because of the progress of the city, the buildings, the transportation system, and how convenient it is. But at the same time, there's also this Asian feel, the charm of this Chinese capital in terms of culture. And we have been living in Beijing for over 5 years. And living in Beijing as expats or as foreign teachers, one of the concerns if you live in another country is the accommodation. So first, let's discuss how it is like living in Beijing in terms of the apartments. I remember Sigi when you had for when we were apartment hunting and finally you had your apartment. You were so happy and you even posted on social media your room and it's very nice. It's very organized. So how do you feel having an apartment of your own in another country?
So when we were new, someone told me that if you live in China, you get what you pay. So I want to talk about specific details about living in Beijing because I used to live in Beijing by myself. Um, and let's talk about the sizes of the apartment. The size of the apartment it ranges normally from 20 square meters to around 60 square meters. At least those that we rented there. So about the price, I think we rented around 20,000 pesos to 60,000 pesos. So I'll give an example. My last apartment in Beijing was around 57 square meters. Yes, and I paid around 50,000 pesos per month. Because again, depending on your budget and your housing allowance, and
Mhm.
we were able to afford around that range when we were still in Beijing, which was really good. Finding apartments in Beijing is not hard, but I think the challenge was finding an apartment that you really like. Normally, you would see around at least five, 5 to 8, around 5 to 8 before you can decide. Um,
Mhm.
but there, one thing that's really good about apartments in Beijing is that they're spacious compared to apartments, let's say in Manila, because I used to live in Manila, or apartments in maybe other neighboring Asian countries like Japan and Seoul, Korea, and Japan, and Tokyo, Japan, which we all know they're relatively small, even let's say in Hong Kong. So I think Beijing apartments are bigger than the usual. And yes, it's really nice, and also it was a part of our work culture that um, we live by ourselves or with some of our workmates. So I really enjoyed staying in Beijing overall.
I remember coming to Beijing. I was working and living in Bangkok, Thailand, and I was able to immediately compare the apartments in Beijing compared to the ones in Bangkok. And what I can say
Mhm.
is, based on my experience, the apartments in Beijing for me is more comfortable. Like what you've mentioned, they're very spacious. I first got a studio apartment. It was very
Mhm.
spacious and is fully furnished already compared to most
Yeah.
apartments in Bangkok where you still have to buy the appliances and all that stuff. And
Mhm.
and it's funny because in the Philippines we call these things condominium. I really don't
Mhm.
know the difference because in Beijing the term are apartments. We call them apartments, or some people call them flat, but they're
Yeah.
equivalent to condominiums in Manila. Even I think even better in terms of for some higher end apartments in Beijing. But the thing
Mhm.
is, one of the challenges when we were young, when we were no, we were young, when we were still new, is
You can say that.
is apartment hunting. That was our first concern, and we were a bit anxious in the beginning. And I remember we had a an agent helping us in apartments hunting. So you guys, three of you, Ruby, Summer, and Ina, decided to live together in the beginning. So can you tell us about the apartment hunting and how hard it is in terms of finding a place to stay in Beijing?
Um, I think 6 years ago, 6 years ago, it was still hard.
No
Okay, so
worries.
6 years ago, it was still very hard to find an apartment because we were still new. We had this agent called Grace, and she helped us find an apartment. And but now I don't think that it's that hard to find an apartment in Beijing. There's this app called Z Room, and where you can just it has like an um, international page that you can just book your apartment, and you can see the apartment virtually in 3D, so it's not that difficult. And you can also check the price range of the apartments that you can pay. So Before it was hard for us, for the three of us, but right now for our current situation, it's not that difficult to find an apartment in Beijing.
Yeah. So can I just say, before even moving to Beijing, the three of us already spoke about living together in one place, like in one house. So me, Ruby, and Ina already spoke about living together in one place. So when we got to Beijing, I believe it's Ruby and Ina who found our house, our first house, and it's really big. So they're the ones. I don't know what I was doing, but they were the ones who found the apartment together with a realtor that they picked. And then the house is really big. It's a three-bedroom apartment, although the rooms are the size of the rooms are different from each other. So it's like small, medium, and like the biggest room. Um, so that's something that we had to talk about before moving in. But we were very excited to finally find a place that is really nice, close to like the happenings at that time where we're living, and it's like a good point for traveling to work and just being around the places that we want to be.
I think I remember also one of the selling points of that neighborhood is that it's very close by the other foreign shopping malls,
Mhm.
name it, like shopping malls, neighborhoods. A lot of our workmates also work there. And it was more fortunate for me that this lady's actually agreed to living in that area because I'm very near. I'm obviously very biased with the neighborhood because I'm just a right away, one bus right away from my workplace. I think when I left, I think 1 year before I left, they already also opened a subway
Subway.
station from that area to my workplace. So yeah, that was amazing. And I think also what made it even more enjoyable for all three of us, at least, was
Hmm.
that we lived together, you know? Because you wouldn't really expect that to happen. You would like to, obviously, I have been wanting to work abroad, live abroad, but I've never really thought about, wow, wouldn't it be amazing living and working abroad with your best friends? And that's what happened to us. So it
Yeah.
all worked out pretty amazing, I can say.
All
And
right,
then
so
of course,
guys,
like after our first year, we had to like move.
Exactly, yeah.
separate ways and say goodbye to each
Yeah.
other, cry and hug each other.
Not really. It's because Ruby's family already also came in
It
to
did though.
Beijing.
We did
Yeah.
cry. Remember that? I know the
Oh yeah, we
final.
have a
You know,
photo
we had the photo.
of our last days in
It was the
the
end of an
house.
era.
And it's a really nice house because we were able to invite like friends, and if there's a
Mhm.
big gathering or like a holiday, Christmas, birthdays, there's like stuff happening in the house. It's not a
Mhm.
party house, but it's a house that people instantly think about when they want to hang out.
Yes, yes, that's true. And like, what's good? Another good thing was all three of us knew how to cook, right? So, for
Oh
example, whoever
yes.
got home immediately on whatever day will just cook whatever, and then anyone can just get something from the fridge or what's available. So that was cool.
It was just a really a homey place for the three of us.
Hmm.
I remember staying there for a night because I think we had a kind of like a
A party.
party or something, like an activity. And the next day, I remember the Ina cooked fried rice for me, sinangag, and and she was like, yeah, telling stories about life and all that stuff, and she cooked fried rice. So those were some
What's your
of the
favorite part in our house before?
I think the living room is really
The
good,
living
and
room was
you
so
even have
spacious.
this sofa
Lazy
and
boy. The lazy
The
boy.
Yeah,
the
the
lazy
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 boy.
boy
boy. There you
sofa.
go.
Yeah.
And you have that, I know, veranda area where it's all glass from the ceiling to the floor. How do you call that? Roof roof floor
I'm
ceiling.
not sure. It's just an open space. It's really nice because very bright, and then the rooms are quite. One is really big and really really beautiful, and the other room is like a baby room. That's teddy
Yeah,
bear wallpaper. And at one point in our lives, when we were in that house, we um,
we had to
each of us
wait.
slept there.
Right. So living in Beijing, most of us, of course, you were living. There were three of you in one apartment before, but eventually, after a year, you decided to live by yourself. So it ended
Mhm.
up we were living by ourselves when we were in Beijing. So I really like that setup personally because
Mhm.
the nature of our job is extroverted. We meet people, we have to talk to kids, we have to deal with people from different countries and our bosses, our colleagues. So after that, I just have to go to my apartment by myself and have my me time. That's one of the best things I love about living in
Mhm.
Beijing or during my time in Beijing, living by ourselves in that kind of apartment. In my case, it was a studio apartment, but for Siggey, I remember you even had a one bedroom at one point.
Yeah, like this current apartment of mine is a one-bedroom apartment. Yeah, it's really nice to live alone. I'm so used to living alone. But I've tried living with other people. During my second year, I've lived with two other Chinese people. They were very nice, but I really didn't enjoy living with other people. So I prefer to live by myself. Um, and it's really nice, but it's challenging at the same time because you have to clean everything. You have to clean the whole house by yourself. You have to cook for
Mm.
yourself. Yes, like this table that I'm using, I had to buy this for myself, or fix everything by yourself.
Right.
It's fun. I'm learning a lot, and I
So,
learned a lot during my many years in Beijing.
so how many places have you lived in? Like how many apartments in
Eight.
your
This
stay
is
in
my
Beijing?
eighth. This is my eighth
Eight?
eighth
Eight.
apartment. Yes, yes.
Wow.
So
That's a
Siggy.
yeah,
lot.
yes, yes.
So
But
That's a
my
lot of moving.
7 years for 8 apartments and seven. So every year you
So kasi
move,
'di ba,
something like this.
yeah, at one point
not
you had
really,
to.
not really. But because of during the pandemic, I had to move
Oh yeah,
um twice. Yes, and here also in Shanghai, I had to move twice because
twice.
of
Yeah, yeah.
different circumstances like the last moved
Hmm.
out and this and that.
For me, I lived in three houses. So one was the big house where the three of us lived in, and then a loft after that, and then um, the last house that I lived in, I was close to Siggy and Regin. It's also a one-bedroom apartment. What about you, Ina?
Um, I lived in like a studio apartment in Chongshaosi, and then I moved in closer to my workplace, and that's the time that I had Chinese roommates. So I what I did was I rented, like, it's like a loft apartment, and then the top floor is my room that has my own bathroom and balcony. So even though that I have roommates, we don't actually see each other because our time was very different from them. So we barely see. So that was that one near my work, and good price as well, and very quiet neighborhood. And I really, really like it. It's like a 36 square meters apartment with my own bathroom and balcony, but I shared it with my Chinese roommates.
And we were so fortunate because our company provided us housing allowance enough
Yes.
for a decent studio or even one bedroom apartment in Beijing, which is Beijing is one of the most expensive cities in terms of accommodation. And I know as well other teachers from other schools where they were even given a higher housing allowance, so as high as 6,000 RMB or
Six.
8,000 RMB per month. So
Mhm.
living in Beijing, if you're a teacher, I think is a in terms of accommodation is very comfortable and very convenient. I don't know about other workers there, but as far as teachers are concerned, and Beijing is a city, a home of a lot of expats, not just in teaching, but expats, foreign workers need for businesses, managers, and they are provided really decent housing in Beijing.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
So how about, I've mentioned that apartments are expensive or accommodation. How about the cost of living? Our listeners might want to know the for those who want to live in Beijing in the future. How about the cost of living in Beijing? How do you guys feel living in Beijing for 5 years?
I always can I start?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I always tell my husband. So since coming back here in the Philippines, so we came back October of last year, and I always ask him because, and I think I've mentioned it to you guys. So to those who don't know me, I have my own family. I have two kids now, and then my husband, of course. So the first time I brought my family over to Beijing, it was just me, my husband, and my son, who was just 3 year old, 3 years old at the time. So it was a little bit challenging at first because my husband didn't have a job then yet. So what he did was he did some part-time job. So for to those of you who are planning to bring your family with you, I think maybe that's one of the things that you can talk to your employers about if it's possible to bring your family over. But I would also strongly recommend that if you do plan to bring your family over, you want to settle yourself in the place in the workplace, of course, in the neighborhood, and because that's what I did. I have seen a couple of foreigners who tried to bring their family on the first year of working in Beijing, and I don't know if this is Beijing specific or if it was just me, but I thought that it was more. I realized that it was more beneficial, at least for my family, because when they came over, I have been in the company for more than a year.
More than a year.
Um, yeah, more than a year. And then I brought my family over. I knew some people already, so it was easier to navigate around Beijing. And I remember if, for example, if I want to bring my son somewhere on my weekend, it was so easy to bike around the city and just, you don't really have to spend a lot of money just to get around. You can do a lot of things with the subway system is very efficient, very, very cheap as well. I think when we first coming in, diba, parang it's just about
It was 2 RMB when we
was
first
it
came.
two R and
2
B, right? And
RMB
that's
regardless of the
anywhere.
distance. Yeah,
Anywhere.
anywhere.
Yes, that's anywhere. And now when we left last year, I think the most expensive was 5 RMB.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's
like
still relatively very cheap. And
it
yeah, it was just so convenient. So I keep asking my husband, do you miss living in Beijing? Because here
Mhm.
in the Philippines, um, and I might ruffle some feathers with some people, but ano lang po, it's just more expensive, I guess, to say like, especially if you have your own car. Yeah, it's more convenient, but it's also expensive. You have to look for a parking space. Tapos now because of the pandemic, it's even more expensive, I think. And when it comes to going around and just enjoying a certain place.
And
Okay.
I want to add because Ruby covered one topic. So for me, it depends on the thing. It depends on different things. For example, if we're going to compare, because I used to live in Taguig, I used to live in McKinley Hill, next to
Yeah.
BGC, and living
Mm-hmm.
there is very
Quite
expensive. So
expensive.
coming
social.
Expensive.
here, yeah,
Yeah,
coming here,
it is
coming here,
very
it's
expensive
different.
here.
So normally, talking about cost of living, you have to look at different things. Number one, Ruby mentioned transportation. So transportation here is, it's like Ruby said, relatively very cheap. Utilities, we all know that. We would all agree it's very cheap here. Electricity, water, internet, they're very cheap. I think mainly subsidized by the government, which is a really good idea. I think that the Philippines should do that. So very cheap. But dining out, formal dining, like going out, it's not cheap. Actually, it's very expensive if you
Very
convert it
expensive.
to pesos. But groceries, you can go to a normal wet and dry market. You can buy really cheap. But if you go to a normal supermarket and let's say an international supermarket, of course, they can be more expensive. But for me, in general, living here in Beijing, the cost of live when we were still in Beijing, the cost of living is kind of high. Also, it depends on what you're earning, because I think if you're just earning the minimum salary there, maybe it will be very expensive for you. But just like what Regin mentioned in the beginning,
Mhm.
living as an expat, of course, our salary is higher. I'd say than the normal. It's normally like that if you're a foreigner in a certain
Yes,
country, but it depends
yes.
also in nationality. But we
Mm-hmm.
were lucky that with what we're earning, we were able to afford living in Beijing.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I listed, like, I could still remember, I listed down like the expenses, like the monthly expenses that I have. And I can
Wow.
still remember
Wow.
how
So
much.
organized.
Filipino kasi, ano yan eh. Ganyan talaga yan.
So this is like, I need to know how much money I earn and how much money that
Yes.
comes out. So so when I was still in Beijing, like the phone bill that I only pay, like I only per month, I pay only 50 to 100 RMB. So that is per
Mhm.
month. And then
Yeah.
for electricity, sometimes 100, because
Yes.
I was living with my roommate. So sometimes 100 for 2 months. So, but
So
in the
sorry,
winter,
excuse me. How much is that in
Which
pesos
room?
and in dollars,
And
approximately?
seven.
In
And
dollars,
seven.
it's about $15 for 100 RMB.
1 month. That's 1 month of
okay,
electricity. And in
yes.
peso, it's
Yeah.
like 700. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
And
cheap.
then for, yes.
I think
And
we
for
have to put it
Very
in
affordable.
perspective to people, no? Kasi they don't know how much electricity we use, diba? So most of the time, since we're out and about in the morning, so we use our aircon for the rest of the day, diba? So yeah, that's how much the electricity would cost. And normally, that's the most expensive appliance that you pay for, right? For
yes.
electricity.
But like the water is very cheap, sometimes 15 RMB
Right.
per month.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very cheap. Like water is
Mm-hmm.
very cheap. And then just like what Siggy mentioned, dining out. So what I do is like um during the week I try not to uh like my budget per day is like 50 RMB or 25 RMB per day. But when
Per
I eat
day?
out per day,
Okay.
50 to 25 RMB per day. So fruits are very expensive in in China. I feel because I always eat fruits in China. So here,
But they're
so
huge.
they're huge.
Right?
Strawberries are really
Yeah, but
good.
the strawberries are like apple
Anyway,
size.
yes. So per month, my budget for groceries for food is 3,000 RMB, including like when we dine out, like when we eat out, and then
Mhm.
1,000 for miscellaneous or other stuff that I need to buy. So overall, like my monthly expenses when I was still in Beijing is like roughly 5,000 RMB. Yes.
So in peso, how much is that?
30,
Um,
35,
it's like
around
20.
35,
35.
35,000.
About 700 to $800.
Yes.
For me, living in Beijing when is different because the first when I came to Beijing first, it was just me. So my expenses, living expenses, were very different compared to when my son was born. And he was born in 2017, so we were in Beijing for about over 2 years already, right? 14, 15, 16. So it was very different. Living overseas in Beijing as a single person um, can get pricey depending on the lifestyle that you want to lead. For example, if you want to eat outside all the time and go to restaurants and explore the city, it can get very pricey. But if you cook, and like what we've mentioned before, we live together, the three of us, Ruby and Ina. in one house. So most of the time, we were able to save some money that we put into buying some stuff like IKEA stuff or clothing and these sort of things. And when my son came in, I had to rein in all of my expenses and a lot, money for a school because he went to like a school that teaches him art and music, something like that, and then set aside money for IE, like a payment for IE. And I believe her salary before was like 4,500 RMB, her first salary, and then it became 6,000 RMB. So it's like a $1,000. So we have to set aside that amount. And then when my child came in, I take the DD all the time from work to home or to go to meet up with you guys because I have a baby. And taking the subway, it can get uh, difficult if it's rush hour and you have a little kid with you. I'm sure Ruby remembers this clearly.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
is different if
Is
you're
it?
just by yourself and then when you are with your husband and your child or if you're with a husband and your IE. So it is different. It depends on the expenses. So most likely you would have to budget more if you're with your family because there's more people spending. So for me that's my
Hmm.
experience.
I think it is also worth noting because I've met some people who ask about schooling, for example, if you have your
Mm.
family, your kids with you, and that's what really I know was one of the challenges for us and me and my husband because since we're not, I wasn't really working for an international school, and most of the schools that
It's
accept
not free,
foreign
right?
foreign students, yeah, that accept foreign students who don't speak Mandarin, and also who have parents who do not speak Mandarin, it will be difficult for them to get into a local school, which is what we tried in the beginning. So um, international schools would cost about 40,000 RMB um, per year to 80,000. This is for preschool. So that's about, how much is that? Times seven. About 300,000 pesos per year. And of course, that's what really what was challenging for us. So that's why my husband and I decided to send Draco back to the Philippines. This was 2 years ago. So yeah, I think if you're a family man and you want to bring your family with you and you got a job in an international school and they allow you to bring your family with you and they can give you free tuition fee to your kids, that's a very
Grab that
good deal.
opportunity.
Yeah, grab the opportunity because that's very rare, especially for Filipinos. But it's not impossible. It is possible if you have connections, if you know people, if you've been in the education industry for a while,
Hmm.
it shouldn't be that it shouldn't be impossible.
So in summary, the cost of living in Beijing is okay. In general, it should really be expensive because guys, Beijing is a major international city, so naturally it should be expensive.
Right.
But like what these guys have mentioned, the accommodation is expensive. In fact, one of the most expensive in the world. But transportation is cheap, electricity is cheap, water and dining out can be relatively expensive in the business district. But if you go to the outskirt of the city, the restaurants are cheap. I can eat for 20 RMB. That's like 140 per meal. That's relatively cheap. And if you're an expat in Beijing, especially working in a big company, you're compensated well. So based on our experience living in Beijing, in terms of the cost of living, really enjoyed living there because of
Yeah.
the compensation of the company, even though the accommodation is expensive. It's the only thing that is expensive in Beijing. Is it is just the accommodation. Others
Education, like
and
school.
education, exactly.
Schooling,
So
yeah.
accommodation and education, but the rest, food, compared to other
Mhm.
major cities like Tokyo or cities in the US, it's not expensive. All
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
right.
But you know what? I'm sorry. Just a little bit. So since now we're on lockdown here, diba? There's a lot of there's an onslaught of homeschooling curriculums and online schooling as well available to international families. So I guess like for me, if I were back in Beijing and I still couldn't afford the international schooling, that's maybe one of the better options that you can get, right?
Yeah, online.
Mhm.
Exactly. So we've been living in Beijing for over 5 years. What are your favorite spots, or what are your recommended spots to visit for visitors, for first-time visitors, or the ones who are just there for the first time?
Great Wall.
Yes,
Oh, of course.
I
Wow,
that is I
number
have
one.
three. I have
Okay.
three. One is like the Great Wall, which we all went. It's like there are different sections of the Great Wall that we should
Mm-hmm.
you should you should visit. One is like the New Tianyu Great Wall, like you can do like the toboggan going down.
Oh yeah.
And then another
Bye.
section was where we went. We went camping together with our coworkers, Regin, right? I
Yeah.
forgot the name of that wall. So the
Janko,
Great
Janko is a Janko
Ganko,
section.
yeah, that is like a really nice spot. So if you want to go to Beijing, um, camping or just visiting the Great Wall. Number two, the Hutongs, because Hutongs
Oh,
are very
yeah.
unique in Beijing. You can only see it in Beijing, so you have to experience walking around the Hutongs.
Hutong. Yeah.
And the third
Right.
one is Jingshan Park.
Where's
The
Jingshan Park?
Jingshan Park is like
To the north.
it's a hill where you can see the Forbidden City on like the top view of the Forbidden City.
Mm, the one with the
Ooh.
So
white stupa, something like a white one. Is it Jingshan Park?
I'm
No,
not
no, no,
so
no.
sure.
Sorry, sorry. I know what you're talking about. That is
Yes,
by the Forbidden City. Yeah, I know.
yes.
I
So
have a picture.
Jingshan Park, and then go directly to the Forbidden City. So
Yes.
in the morning, go to the go to Jinshan Park, and then walk your
Oh,
way up to Forbidden City. Yeah,
Ina,
is it?
for those who know or who don't know, maybe you can give a little overview about the Hutongs.
the Hutongs.
Yeah,
Hutongs
what is it
There's
about?
are
Hutong,
the Hutongs are like the
old villages.
old houses of Chinese. How can I say those? Can you help me with this,
You're
Regina?
correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, old houses with
Yeah,
of
old villages.
Chinese
Yeah,
people.
in
And
mm-hmm.
what I like about these places is that you can see, mm, you can see how locals live, how they are in their daily lives, and how artistic the hutongs are, like how artsy they are. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you can see like hole in the wall dumpling place, which is amazing food, amazing dumplings. And then you can well and then you can just see like a bar or a restaurant in that
Yes,
place, which is very nice. So
yes,
the vibe is different. I cannot
yeah.
explain.
It's so alive, right?
Yes,
Especially at
yes,
night, right? Especially at night, if you know where to go, the Hutongs is one of the best places to go to. Yeah, and
yes.
ask Ina where some of the hole in the wall restaurants are because you did bring me to some of them before I left for Manila, right? I remember the dumpling place that you brought us to.
Yes. And in the hutongs as well, you can see like old people doing calligraphy on the street.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Or
interesting.
Tai Chi, doing
And
Tai
like
Chi.
yes, tai chi and dancing. So these are the things that I really liked about Beijing. And also the Olympic. Oh, fourth one is like the Olympic Village where I used to live. At nighttime, it's the best place to walk because you can see like different dances from different groups of women, like old people dancing different styles of dances, jazz. You can see all types of dances there, and all of course the bird's nest.
Yes,
You,
So
Olympic season.
yes, the Olympic season. So those are like my top four places that one must go when visiting Beijing.
so Ina, you've mentioned Jingshan Park in the morning, like probably at sunrise. Is it
Yes.
romantic there?
Mm, can be. It's up to you if you think, but it's very relaxing there in the morning. It's
Okay.
very relaxing there.
Uh,
You can see the entire view of the Forbidden City. So,
would
is
you
it romantic?
would you recommend it
Uh,
for a dating spot?
uh, for you can. I think it's okay
Maybe
as well.
not.
Yeah, probably sunrise overlooking the Forbidden City. Yeah, I think it would be a very romantic spot. I haven't tried it yet. I haven't been there during sunrise, but yeah, I'm imagining it can be a romantic place. So how about the rest? What are your
I can give one.
recommended destination?
I
Sigi,
can
for
give
sure
one.
you will say shopping again.
Yes, 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 yeah.
I
Well, I'll
know
cover it.
where.
I'll cover that. So no, no. But you know what? Before I moved to Beijing, I had this colleague back in Manila that she said Beijing is one of her favorite cities because the culture is very rich, and just like what Ina mentioned, um, Beijing is a very good place to travel because it has a good combination of the ancient and maybe like modern times. Yes, you'll see their culture from the ancient times with the Hutongs, but then again, remember when we were inside that van? Remember Ruby Summer? We were surprised with the skyscrapers of Beijing,
Yeah.
right? So Beijing is like that, like a combination of like the old times and the modern times, because China is the most rapidly
Developing
developing country
Mm-hmm.
in the world.
in
Yes,
the
yes.
world. Yes.
Aggressively
So
developing.
but then again, for me, if you're gonna travel, um you need to know what your traveling style like that. You can be as adventurous as Regin or visit very famous places like the Great Wall, Forbidden City, Temple Heaven. But me, I'm a very city person, and in case you're not aware, my favorite place in Beijing is, can you guess which
I know.
street?
Warmong
No.
area.
Sanlitun. Sanlitun.
Shidao.
The Wang Fujing
Wang
Street. It's my
Fujing,
Oh,
there's
favorite.
Fuji.
secret.
Yes, yes.
I love Bang
It's
Fujing.
it's my
I
favorite
love that.
because in case you don't know, they built that during the Ming Dynasty. It's been famous since the old times. That's where people used to sell things. That's why whenever we go there, you can try their exotic food, and there's a souvenir street, and of course they
Mm-hmm.
have their some of their best malls. The malls at the
Wow.
Oriental Plaza. If I'm not mistaken, that's the biggest mall in Beijing. They also have the
Mm-hmm.
Beijing APM, which has the biggest Apple store. And
Uh-huh.
you remember, they have all the luxury hotels there. They have the Waldorf Astoria. Remember, Regin, we did window shopping there.
Yeah.
The Intercon, the Mandarin
Louis
Oriental. So
Vuitton.
yeah, we went to the Louis Vuitton and we tried different
Uh,
stuff. They have the Hermes and everything. So in that one street, they have everything. Again,
mhm.
really good food. I brought my sister there, and she was so happy with the food street there. It's a good place for food trip. And of course, the Cheesecake Factory is there inside that most beautiful mall, by the way, in Beijing. So,
That's true.
and sorry, I have to mention when you guys left me, all of you, even Ina, when Ina moved
Oh,
to
We left
Shanghai,
you.
I was
Shanghai.
alone.
Grabe
Yes,
naman.
I went to Wang
Say
Fujing
hi.
and I sat there. Hello,
Hello, Draco.
It's
hello.
been
He had a
fun
moment at
visiting
the
you
Wang
guys. Go
Fujing
on.
place.
Close the door.
Yes, yes. I sat in the middle of the Wang Fujing and that stairs
The
overlooking the
stairs.
city, and I took 180 videos, and I sat there for a long time by myself because I was saying goodbye to Beijing and to my favorite part of Beijing,
Wow.
which is
Yeah.
Wang Fujing.
Um,
Yeah, so yeah, visit Wang Fujing
We
Street.
had lots of memories at Oang Fujing, like the five of us. We
yes.
always go there during
Yeah.
Oh,
weekends, and we
yes,
had
that's
lots of
true.
Talk.
activities like coffee
Special
shop,
Activities.
occasions.
special
Special
like
occasions.
birthdays, tea
Mm-hmm.
houses. Yeah,
And not just us. I mean, there were a couple of Filipinos who were with us, diba? So
yeah,
that will always be a memorable place for me.
yeah. Shout out to Arvin, to Jojo,
So,
Honey.
Roy. Yeah, Wang Fujing is amazing, and that is where our dentist is located. Sigi, we go there
Also, our photo
twice a year.
studio, everything, everything is there.
Everything is there. It's also a good place for kids because there's a big toy store. I
Yeah.
remember Draco always
Yes.
used to like go there.
Family.
Um,
Yeah.
and also
Family.
there's for me, Solana is a
Oh,
really,
Oh,
really good
yeah.
place. It's one of my
Mm-hmm.
favorite places. It's a mall that
Mm-hmm.
has a section for kids and then a section
Mm-hmm.
for clothes, sports items, and
Dining.
restaurants,
Yeah.
dining inside and out. And it's like Eastwood if you're in the
Mm-hmm.
Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Mm-hmm.
remember I wasn't an adventurous person when I was in Beijing. I didn't really go out a lot. When I had my child, then that's the time I would venture out to like a park. Mostly, we like prepare to go to Disneyland. I believe we went to Shanghai more than like going around in Beijing with my kid because
Together.
oh, it's Disneyland. Yeah, together. I remember that. So mostly for me, it's the malls, which is really not a big thing, but the mall is really nice in Beijing.
Mhm.
So
Especially
that's
for
what I
I know
highly.
for families, yeah.
Yeah, if
Solana has
yeah,
a and it
it has
wasn't just
everything.
Solana at the time when we left. It had everything like restrooms for families. It always has that. Like most of the malls back in Beijing, they had restrooms for families. So I thought that I also love the malls of Beijing. But for me, one of one of the things so I'm
Just
very active. I love biking around the city even before Jake and my husband came here. But I became more active when my son was here because my weekends were different from his when he was going to school now. So I made it a point to bring him somewhere where we could bike and just let him go do his rollerblading. And so I love going to the park. We especially love going to Longtan and Riten Park because it's very close by our
mm,
house and it's
long
about
time.
a
Yeah.
15-minute bike ride with him. So that was always my agenda every time it's a weekend. So I also ask him what are the things that he'd like to do. And that's what he wanted. He wanted to just hang out and do his rollerblading at the time.
Also, I want to suggest, like looking back, if you are given an opportunity to live overseas, and if you can, of course, now depending on the restrictions of the country where you're at because of COVID and the new, stuff happening, explore. Because for me, I wasn't really that person, but looking back, I was thinking like, oh, maybe I could have explored more places and went to different places and tried other stuff because the experience will be very different compared to what you were used to. And if you're given an opportunity like that, you should grab it and just go and venture.
Mhm.
Someone to wrap the must visit sites before we go to the next question. Probably
Ikaw,
someone
you can tell us
Ikaw, ang dami mong napuntahan sa Beijing.
what's your most, what's your favorite place?
romantic. Yeah, like what
Yes.
Sigi have
Sure.
like what
For the
Sigi have
ano, the
mentioned.
singles out.
For the
Beijing is a
bachelor.
combination of modern and ancient. So if you want culture and the modernity of the city, basically Beijing has everything. Like
Mm.
literally everything can be found in Beijing. But in terms of favorite tourist spot, I really love the Temple of Heaven.
Yes.
Yes.
Temple of Heaven
Yes.
is a very special religious place
Mm-hmm.
built during the Ming Qing dynasty. And then we always go to this place as well. The Chanmin
Chunmin.
Street?
Chunmin.
Chan.
Chanmin
Yes.
Street. Yeah, it is.
Or Peking duck.
Beijing duck is there. It's a very touristy street, but it's very historical. So if you
Mhm.
want the vibe of Beijing, the vibe of China in general, go to Chanmin Street. And we have this one hotel where we usually go to that there's a rooftop
Laptop.
bar
Oh
overlooking the
God.
Forbidden City. It's the Emperor
Yeah.
Hotel, if I'm not mistaken. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my favorite spot. Yeah, if
Is that
dating
your
there is
favorite
good.
dating spot as well?
Oh yeah, lots of memories in there. Like with friends. All right, guys. So, what are your favorite activities in Beijing? Living there for over 5 years.
Ang dami. Ako, I
Um,
like, sige, Ina, go ahead.
you go ahead first.
Ako, like I said, I like going to the park there. I like going to the mall. I like, oh, we especially love visiting IKEA. Because there were, when we left, how many IKEA malls were there already? Dalawa or tatlo na, no? When we left. I
Three,
think
three.
about three. Three. Yeah, so IKEA malls. Yeah, just going around. To me, libraries also is a great idea for people with kids. Also, if you just want to be alone and left to yourself, you can go to the libraries because they have a huge. They have the national library there. Tapos, I know like communities will have local libraries. But the thing is, for libraries like that, there's not a huge variety of international books. So you would want to go to the National Library, for example, or a bookstore perhaps, where you can browse through their book collection. So yeah, that's for me.
Yes. What's good about Beijing is that depending on your interests and hobbies, there's always a place to go to. Like Regin would play tennis, or
Mm-hmm.
our colleagues would play soccer, football. So it depends on what you want. But there's this one thing that I only did in Beijing for the longest time that I never did, even back at home or even here in Shanghai. Actually, it's riding the bike, because the bike sharing, the shared bikes in Beijing are, that's very common, and it's fascinating for me because every day I did that, to and from work, and of course home. And when my sister visited in Beijing, we did that. Like, even when we were in Shanghai, we traveled to Shanghai, we did that, and she said it's very interesting because we don't get to do that in the Philippines a lot. So I enjoyed it. Even here in Shanghai, I don't do that anymore. But I miss biking in Beijing because it's healthy, it's very convenient, and it's very cheap.
Very cheap.
Yes, like you pay it monthly. I'm still paying it monthly around 16 RMB, so around 100 something in pesos per month. So for you to access bikes all
Bike.
over the
Yeah.
city. So yeah,
Yes.
biking, fun activity.
Mm-mm.
Something I remember fondly when I was in Beijing is volunteering. So I was able to do this in the first years when we were in Beijing, is to volunteer because of our company, we have this thing called Disney Volunteers, and the company opens up spots for volunteers to attend. For example, teach kids or go to a hospital or paint a school. So these opportunities, these are, I think, one of the really good things that I have enjoyed because, like what I mentioned earlier, I'm not really an outdoorsy person, not really an adventurous person. So that experience provided me an opportunity to travel a little bit outside of Beijing and go to the outskirts and meet some people that's not from work. So something like that. That's
Yeah,
one of my really good
yeah.
memories.
Regin met an Olympian. You met an Olympian because of
Yeah.
The
volunteers. Yeah.
volunteers,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, we went to Yan'an, Shanxi province because of one of the volunteer events of Disney
Wow.
English. And we
That was
met
nice.
this Olympian and gold medalist of World Championship, Wang Hao. His name is Wang Hao, and even one of our colleagues and friend played with him. Wow, that's really amazing. His name is Cody. If you're listening, shout out to Cody. He played with Wang Hao table tennis. Yeah,
How long were you in that place? Like for the volunteer
we were
event?
there for 2 days and one night.
2 days.
All expenses paid, airfare, food,
Oh,
hotel
nice.
accommodation. That was great. Yeah, volunteer
Mm-hmm.
event. All right, favorite activity. How about Ina? Ina is
Yeah.
smiling. You have a new camera. The resolution looks better.
Oh, maybe my internet connection. So
Okay.
I live right next to the Olympic Village. So I live in the Olympic Village, and so like I miss like in the morning, like I get to run around the racetrack or like the running track, and I miss running around the Olympic Village. So that is one of the activities that I enjoy the most. And then just like Ruby and Siki, I love biking the from the third ring road to the first ring road. So I love biking from the north to Forbidden City or to the Hutongs and then walk around the Hutongs. So those are like my favorites. And in the winter time, or when I really have time, or when there are like nice galleries, because the time that I appreciate art the most was when I was in Beijing, because there are a lot of art galleries from
Yeah.
Exhibitions. Yeah.
exhibition.
Yeah.
You get to experience
Museums. Yeah.
these things. So for me, those are like I enjoy doing. But now we also get to do that, but rarely. But in Beijing, there's always something going on at
Do you
798.
think?
There's always
Do you
something
think it's
you can
because?
do.
Do you think it's because you guys are busier now, or
We there are events here in
Mm.
Shanghai. There are some events. We've been to some Ina has been to some. We went to this exhibition one time, but yeah. Maybe because we're busy.
So that's
mm,
also one. But those are the things that I like doing, or the activity: running, biking, and visiting museums. And if you also like to do like improv, like acting, they have this improv, Beijing improv. And even though that you cannot really act, like just attend their sessions, and they are
Have you
very
tried that?
wonderful. I've tried it.
yes, you did.
Yeah.
She went.
She
But
went
That's
I'm
to
so
glad
cool.
Caymo.
we
Yeah, I saw her.
just for an experience. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
What about you, Regan?
Yeah, yeah, like what I've
yeah.
mentioned a while ago, Beijing is a major international city, and one of my favorite activities there is going to events like concerts and sporting events. I remember the first time I
Oh
was able to
yes.
watch an opera, like a live, actual, real opera in Beijing, and also a musical play, which is the Phantom of the Opera. Was able to watch it in major sporting events, an NBA game, a
We
internet
saw the what do you call this? The FIBA. Yeah.
FIBA World
Yeah.
Cup, like one of
Yeah,
the
the
Mm-hmm.
highest basketball tournaments in the world, and also a friendly between Brazil and Argentina in football or soccer. Imagine these sporting events, the track and field,
tennis.
tennis, China Open. I saw Usain Bolt in person, and yeah, I even know Sigi. You watch Cats? Is it Cats or the
Um
musical or the other one? Chasing
Wicked.
Gravity,
Wicked.
Wicked, Gravity.
Wicked.
Yeah,
Cat.
yeah,
Wicked.
that one. So yeah, that's one of the things I
Cirque du
love about
Soleil.
Beijing.
Cirque du
Yeah.
Soleil.
Oh,
Rent.
that's one of my
I was,
regrets.
Although
You were
yeah.
trying to convince me to watch, but I was like, oh, I'm not into circus, but I just realized it's not that a normal circus. So I that's one of my regrets.
Cirque
I
du
didn't watch
Soleil.
that one, and yeah, just hanging out in my apartment. You know, just hanging out in my apartment, like watching movies, just
Mm-hmm.
sleeping because, like what I've said, we had a comfortable accommodation. Just a one I love doing that when I was in Beijing. So going to events and just being in my apartments because everything is there.
Another
It's very convenient.
Another thing I actually liked was bringing my family to the theater. This was before pandemic time, and so most of the cinemas in Beijing were 4D. So that was really amazing for me because, diba? That's so cool. And
4D.
your son got to enjoy it with you. And yeah, so yeah, that was fun.
IMAX,
Oh,
IMAX as well.
Yeah,
It's mostly IMAX. Yeah.
I remember this because Siggy um,
Oh
treated me to like
yes.
a VIP cinema
Yeah.
experience. It's just us in the cinema, and there's like someone who brings us stuff and
Oh
Snacks.
food
I
wow.
think
and
it's
snacks.
I think only it's a 10-seater VIP
Yeah, it was
cinema with
really
a
Wow.
lazy
it was
boy.
really
We fell asleep. I fell asleep.
luxurious. It's
It was so
luxurious, right?
comfortable.
Also, for everyone, most of the time we also spend our time together, the five of us. Like we hang out a lot of times. So that's
Eating
But
also
out,
good,
dining out,
one
eating
good
out.
really
but Ina
memory.
but
Like
Ina
we
would
would
hang out wouldn't hang out with us. She would have a different
sleep right
activity
away.
during
Yeah.
weekends.
like you.
She's like, "What time is it?"
She needs to
But
sleep
that was
early.
before. That was
Remember
before.
her beauty regimen.
All
One.
right. So for this next one, we're gonna talk about. I really hate this activity. So you guys talk about this stuff. Shopping. Like most travelers, they go to a city. They love shopping, but I hate shopping. So how about in Beijing? What are the examples of shopping areas that you can recommend?
Summer,
When we
whenever
were
the maximum shoppers
yeah, I
of the
have
week.
like a really good experience with shopping in Beijing during the first years of everything before 2017, before my son was born. So there's a place in I forgot the name of this place, but there's a
Chidan.
it's like a
Chidan.
yes, Shidan.
Idan.
Yes, that's correct. In the Philippines, you would call it like a Changian,
Changi,
Like a
Changi.
like Green Hill,
168. Like a
But
yeah,
it's
168.
168 or Green
Green
Hills,
Hill.
but it's a little maybe the place is better, well, it's
Yes.
not crowded, but the selection is really good. So in that places like Green Hills, you can find fake stuff like of replicas of branded items, and then also just everything is there.
You can huggle.
Like yes, you can haggle for half the price or even 75% off of the price. So that was a really good spot because we can get a lot of stuff in there. And then for the shopping place where you can see the branded clothes like Zara, H&M, and other shopping stuff, I believe San Latun is a really really good place
in
for
Solano.
shopping. Yeah, and then next to San Latun, there's also like a Changian, the Pearl. No, no, no. There's an old Changian there.
Silk
Uh,
Street, the Silk Street, the
yeah,
Pearl
yeah,
Market.
Silk Street that you can also buy some really good stuff.
But
It's
I
so
guess right
cute
now they
because
are no long. They don't
Yeah,
exist
yeah,
they
anymore,
closed
right?
already. So I
But
remember
no,
I was
because
very
they did
sad when they closed.
high end shopping already. It's not the same
Really
as before.
very pricey.
Mm-hmm.
They're still there. But they made it really good because before I left Beijing, I went
Hmm.
there to
You
that
went there.
Silk Street.
but
It's just
not
that they
near San Litun. I think it's
yeah.
near Line One.
It's in Gomao. It's in near
Yes,
Gomao.
yeah, Line
So
One.
I went there to check, and they still have like different items like
Gadgets.
gadgets and everything there.
Yes.
Same like with silk products and so on. Before Ruby, because I know Ruby and Ina have a lot to share. Same with actually one of the best malls I've seen in my entire life is the China World Mall. Some
Hmm.
brands that I only know or heard, they're there in that area. It's like one of the super high end mall I've ever
China
seen.
World. Oh yeah.
The China World Mall, the one
In
with the
Goma.
With
big
the,
Louis Vuitton.
with the highest
Yes,
building. With the
yes,
highest
yes,
Yes.
with
building.
Iceman. With
Oh,
everything is
Love.
there. I even took videos of that to prove that they're
I
just there.
agree.
The Balenciaga and the Hermes are
mm,
literally next to
a
one another.
lot.
We
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes,
Louis
everything
Vuitton,
is in that mall.
Gucci,
One of the most
Prada.
high end. So, but
Mm-hmm.
that's
It's
because
at the
Chinese
heart
people
of
love
the
to
city.
shop. Chinese people love to shop, even here in Shanghai. You'll be
They
surprised,
have a
right,
lot of
Ina?
money.
The Louis Vuitton here, it's hard to enter because the line is always long every
Yes.
day. Yes, because
And
they
all
really love to
those
shop.
high-end shops like Gucci, what else?
Yes, the line are always
The
long.
lines are always very long, and I always say like, where do they get their money?
Yeah, so high-end shopping is really common in Beijing.
Do you guys
Especially,
remember that place outside of Beijing? Like a
Wuching?
shopping place? Oh yeah, Wuching. Yeah, that's a really good
I
place.
Oh,
love that
I
Oh,
love
Beijing
place.
also
Wholesome.
I love
Beijing also
Wuching.
has many outlet stores. Remember, I've been to some, but Wuching I think is one of the best
Wuching is one of the
outlet
best.
stores.
Yeah, Wuching. It's between Beijing and Tianjin.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's a
Wuching.
20-minute train ride,
Yeah,
bullet train ride out from Beijing. Yeah,
yeah,
that's actually one of my favorite shopping areas, Beijing, because you have a lot of high end, high end, plus middle range in the brands. Like the when I left, there was H&M already, but then the high end brands included. They have Gucci, right? Balenciaga, MCM, um, yun. Tapos you have your sporting goods brands like Nike, Adidas, and normally you get the price almost half the price of the original pricing. It's always fun to go to Wuching, even just to explore that part of that city because that's actually because my husband lived in that area for a while, so we were there most of our weekends. Me and my son were there most of our weekends, and so we'll just hang out in the place, even if you don't want to shop or buy anything. There's a lot of places you could eat in, and there's also a place for parks for kids. So that was fun.
So Beijing can cater to any type of shopper, really. If you
yeah.
have
Yes.
lots of money to spend, if you're on a budget, if you're looking
Mm-hmm.
for branded clothing or just, the regular stuff, it's
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of shopping, like what I've said, but for the things that I really need, I miss these stores in Beijing because I'm now living in a province here in the Philippines and we don't have these stores here. I miss Muji,
Miss
Decathlon,
Muji.
and Zara. These three
What's your
stores.
favorite? Oh, there.
These are the only stores that I think I buy my stuff. Muji,
When
Decathlon,
you were in Beijing.
and we
Muji,
were
I
in
think for you,
Beijing.
Muji is
What's
more.
your
Muji is my favorite as a minimalist. Yeah.
Wait, I think it's also worth noting that online shopping is so big
Oh,
in Beijing,
Oh, we forgot to mention
right?
that one. Even
I've been
before,
saving that.
Especially,
I've been saving that
yeah,
for the pros of living
okay.
in. But
yes.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's
Online
talk about
All
that
right.
shopping
later.
it's
Yeah.
perhaps it was the birth of online shopping, I would say, because you can
Yeah.
shop
This is
anything
true. This is
online,
true.
Yeah. That
and
one. Yeah.
sometimes even get the package on that day that you ordered it, right? So that's
Sometimes.
amazing. Yeah, we can talk about that in a later. But yeah.
Of course, in traveling, one of the things that you can enjoy your travel is food, right?
Mm-hmm.
Food. And let's talk about dining in Beijing. What are your favorite restaurants? What is the ambience, or what is like dining in Beijing in terms of restaurants, shops, not shops, but like groceries and bars? And a favorite restaurant. I know Sigi loves Cheesecake Factory.
Because
I think
I'm
that's
kind
all
of
of us,
yeah,
I don't
except
like
you.
except me.
Yeah, except
Yeah.
you.
kind of biased with like Western food. I really love Western food. But talking about Chinese food, because talking about Beijing, um,
Hot pot.
yes, the Haidilao hot pot, we just went there.
I don't
But a
know.
Beijing duck is always a go-to, and one of the best places. Oh, what's the name of that? Um, the
Chuanjude,
place, the other one.
Dadong, Dadong.
Dadong duck, sorry. Dadong duck, remember, in our Ruby, that's our last Beijing duck meal together. We were
Dinner.
saying goodbye to Beijing. We
Yeah.
went to
Oh,
Dadong duck, and we go to this place in Enchanmen, which is also a really good duck place. I forgot the name in Chinese, but we always know how to go there because it's been there for many years. It's a very old restaurant.
Is that right?
Yes. So I would say Beijing duck for me is my favorite. And also the Western food. So if you're a foreigner or a Westerner here, it's easy to survive because there are many really good restaurants if you
Restaurants.
love
Yeah,
food.
that's true. I remember me and my husband were talking about when we were in Korea, we were talking about the food. And it came up a lot of times that the food in Beijing that caters to foreigners and locals is really good. And there's a vast selection of different, for example, Chinese food, Indian food, Japanese food. It's just a really good selection that people can choose from, whatever, if you're vegetarian or if you only eat chicken or stuff like that. It has a good selection, and the food is really good and also quite affordable. I think the for me my favorite restaurant is the Japanese one. I totally forgot the name
Yeah,
already.
well, what's the name
Pune,
of
Is
it?
it
no?
teppanyaki?
It's
Yes,
Pasig.
Hatsune, no,
Hatsune.
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 Yeah,
I
that
was
one.
just
And
there.
the Cheesecake Factory, and just ordering from the app.
Yeah.
Very
There's a
convenient.
food app that we always order to. It's so convenient. And then the lamb barbecue restaurant near our workplace, when I was
Mhm.
working with Siggy and Regin in the same
Yeah.
center.
This
Yeah,
BB
that one is
barbecue
really
place.
I think it's called Moo Woo
Honor.
Barbecue. Yeah.
To
good.
honor.
It's
They,
just it
they
is
have
popular, but
pancit.
we don't know the name. Yeah, they
Yeah,
have
They have
They
they
pancit
have
do. They do
pancit.
and
have pancit.
barbecue.
Guisadong
Yeah.
pancit.
So for me, I have listed like three of my top
I like that
favorite.
Ina came prepared for this. She did her homework.
No,
Well
no.
done.
While you guys
It's
are
like a cheat sheet.
I
no, while
love
you
it.
guys are talking, I was just writing down mine. So, mine is like my favorite, which I took my brother. Is called Yue Hue Restaurant. It's like a hole in a wall Beijing duck. It's like a vegetarian with vegetarian restaurant. So if you are if you are new in Beijing, it's really nice place to go because during dinner time they have this Beijing opera dance that visitors can see, and the food is really good. This is also one of Food Ranger recommended restaurant.
Oh, food
So
Food
this
ranger.
Ranger,
is
the vlogger.
the
Yeah.
vlogger.
Yeah,
Like
love
Yes,
that
Okay.
and
guy.
then one is another one which I took you guys in and out. It's a Yunnan restaurant. Yunnan restaurant is one. Yunnan food
Oh
is
during
yeah,
your birthday,
favorite.
right?
Yeah, for my
where
Yeah.
she
birthday.
cried.
When we
Yeah.
were
Where we
all
were all
late.
late.
We
when you
were all
cried
late.
because Ruby was late.
We were late for
You
more
guys
than
are
an
all late.
Everybody
hour.
was late.
Yeah.
And the last one, which
Sorry.
The
is like,
first one there.
of course, TRB is like the fanciest.
Oh,
Uh,
dear.
Woo!
Why do you like TRB?
Because it's
Why?
romantic. It's
yeah,
And
romantic.
it's
The food
something
is good.
special.
The
It's
food is
something
good.
special. It's a good food, and when you try, it's like different kind of flavors, and you cannot really like expect that that is the flavor of the food,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But anyway, the last one of last favorite is like Zara Cafe Zara. I'm not sure if I took you
Ah,
Never
guys
tried
yes.
there.
it.
she brought us
But
there,
yes,
You did. The three of us. Yeah, we went there.
yes.
right?
So why I like this because they have this theme in the morning. It's like a cafe in the morning, and in the afternoon, it will turn into like a cafe restaurant. And in the evening, it will turn out to be a cafe bar restaurant.
Bar.
So
Yes.
you can go, like, you can stay the entire day and it will change its
Wow. That
atmosphere.
sounds
And
amazing.
it's in a hutong as well.
It's
It's
in a
close to the
hotel.
hutong. Yes. It's really nice, especially in the summer. Yeah, so those are like my favorite restaurants in my
I was waiting for you to mention Tomacado, the one with lots of roses
Uh,
and
She always talks
flowers.
To
about
be
it.
honest, that is also one of like
actually,
the
there are
food
many.
places
There are
here.
many amazing restaurants. Yeah,
A lot.
in Beijing. Like
In
it's hard to
Beijing,
enumerate.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
a really good
I
place
think among the
to
five of
dine.
us, Ina and Regin were able to explore more restaurants
Mm.
than any
I
of
wonder
us.
why. Hmm.
Because we are trying to find ourselves.
And fine
To the
dinings,
taste.
5 course meals.
I haven't
Me,
heard you talk
Ruby,
about
Ruby.
IKEA meatballs. You keep on saying that before.
Yes, yes, it's really
Swedish,
good.
meatballs.
Okay, Ruby, how
That's
about
my
you?
favorite. My favorite would have to be, hands down, Peking duck. And then my second most favorite is hot pot by Heidi Lau. Not just
Ideal.
any hot pot, really Heidi Lau for me. I wish that they will have a Heidi Lau spot here in the Philippines because I really miss the vibe that they give in that restaurant. Parang they give you that
Extra
ultimate customer
service.
service
Yes, I
experience
like Haidu.
That's
that
just
is
in
quite rare
Beijing.
in Beijing, right?
No, no,
Not only in
no,
Beijing,
no, not only in Beijing, because we were just there.
No, I
Uh-huh.
mean the Heidi Lao experience. I mean that's just in China because there's a. I remember
Yes.
me and Arvin. We went to
Went
Heidi
to
Lao in
Korea.
Korea when he visited
Uh-huh.
us,
Is it
and
Oh,
mystery?
the service was very different. It
Oh,
was
oh,
in
really?
Seoul, and it was just like a regular restaurant. Not I was
Mm-hmm.
expecting, the Beijing
We're
service
gonna dance
where
to the noodles.
yeah, but they also have like when you wait, they have the nail polish and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's different.
the
I
customer
think
service is
the
different.
yeah, it's very different. The Haidi Lao in China is more homey and
Mm-hmm.
friendlier.
Like you are
The
a
Haidi Lao
queen.
in Korea.
It's
Yeah,
like
it's
you're
very
queen.
different.
Like
But
that.
the food tastes the same. It's the service is different.
Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
forgot to mention about this. This is not a restaurant, but this is my favorite Beijing food because it's hard for me
street
to
food.
find
Street food.
jambing. Jambing. It's hard for me
Jianbing.
to find a good jambing place here in Shanghai. It's so
Mm-hmm.
hard. You can only find, for me, find good jambing in Beijing.
When
It's
we
so
when we arrived in Beijing, remember near our hotel, there's
Yes.
one
And it's
around the
so cheap.
corner, around the corner,
Yeah,
and
it's
I
very
ate
very
there a
affordable.
lot.
Like
Yeah.
it's like 5 kwai, remember?
10,
5 or 7 kwai?
10, I
10.
Oh,
forgot.
10
And we would share because at that time we
It's
didn't have
big. It's big.
money.
Is Janbing like the taco thing of Beijing? Like they roll it, or I forgot what Janbing
yes.
is.
No.
It's a taco
It's
The
thing. Like
egg,
they roll it,
egg
Breakfast
right?
and wrap, and they
pancakes.
will
Oh, the
slice.
one. Yeah, 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 okay.
Yeah. Chinese
the
breakfast.
pancake.
Draco
Oh.
loves that place. Draco
Uh,
loves Jambe. Even until now, he mentions it. Like, Mom, I want Jambe.
yeah, Janbing. Because I was
Oh, I
confused
miss
with
living in
Xiaobing. Xiaobing is
Beijing.
the round one, and the
Yes,
Yes.
stuff inside the round one is Xiaobing. Wow, wow. That's make me. It made me miss Beijing. The food.
Me too.
Mm.
Yeah, for me, I
I miss you
love.
guys in Beijing.
should go to Beijing next year if we are
Yeah,
able.
after the pandemic.
It's
Yes.
Winter Olympics next
After.
year.
Oh yeah,
Oh, is it?
2022 Winter
Oh
Aren't
my
Olympics.
they
goodness.
opening Universal Studios also this year in
Supposed to be,
Beijing?
but seems like they pushed it back again. But they're
Right.
supposed to because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is.
Let's
Yeah.
pray that everything will open up and safe to travel so we can.
Mm-hmm.
In Beijing, there are restaurants because Beijing is the capital. So basically, all of the cuisine of China, they have put up restaurants for that particular cuisine.
Mhm.
Like you mentioned Haidi Lao, that's from Chongqing, the spicy, and there's a I forgot how. It's like a
Mala.
peppercorn,
Malata.
peppercorn. Yeah, yeah. It's not spicy, but kind of like cold in your mouth, so they
In
say.
your mouth, yeah.
Yeah, it's from Chongqing, and but my favorite restaurants in Beijing are the the ones from Xinjiang, a Muslim cuisine, and also
Hmm.
Tian, is it
And
Tian
Tian?
Tian.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Tian's it's cuisine from Fujian,
French.
southern part of China, and
Isn't it also French?
it has
Oh,
one
maybe
Michelin
what you're
star.
talking.
Yeah, Tian's,
Is
right?
that
It
a
has.
different from the French
this
place
is
that
a
you guys were
French
talking
restaurant,
about?
Oh,
right?
sorry. So another one.
Is that the one in
I'm talking about
Shanghai?
Putian. Sorry, I'm talking
Putian,
about
yeah,
Putian, not the
Putian.
French
Yeah.
one. I'm talking about
Ina,
Putian.
remember Putian?
Yeah,
The Michelin
it
star.
has one
Yeah.
Michelin star, and it's cuisine from Fujian, southern part. It's kind
Yeah.
of similar to Filipino food. So
Mm-hmm.
I really like that one. And the bars in San Tune. I love the bars because I used to watch F1 games, not
The
games, but like
race.
F1 races at bars in in San Lito. I really love this bar where they always have the quiz. What is the name of the
Quiz
bar?
night. Quiz night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do you remember the name of the bar? It's near
I
the
forgot,
yeah,
but
that
we
Like a
one.
I
Mexican
don't know.
restaurant?
Yeah,
um
Is it the
where
barbecue?
Clueless.
The one that we like.
no remember the
it's not
fair.
a barbecue. They have Western food there,
Yeah,
but it's good.
remember
Yeah,
Arvin's
home
Okay,
plate.
farewell.
barbecue.
Home plate.
Home plate. Why did you
On
No,
forget?
not
Yeah.
behind
not whole plate. Like
behind home plate. Behind
yeah,
home
you
plate.
remember Arvin's farewell? We went there and there was an
Ah, I
F1
forgot.
race.
I
Yeah,
forgot.
that
Yes,
one.
I do remember, but
Yeah,
I forgot the
that's one
name
of
of
my
the place.
favorite
Home
and
plate
good
is also
bars.
good. Texas
Home plate.
Texas
Yeah.
barbecue.
How about living in Beijing? How about the customs of the locals? Like, how do you guys adapt? And so, customs of
Hmm.
locals, like we guys are foreigners living there. So, how do you find the locals in general in terms of living in that particular city? Because we need to adapt,
Living,
right?
Can I
yeah.
can I answer
Hey,
first? So
go ahead.
I believe in that saying where do as the locals do, right? When you're living abroad, do as the locals do. If you want to thrive, if you want to enjoy your everyday in another country, do as the locals do. Because I've seen a lot of other foreigners who would still eat the same way they used to eat in wherever country they came from. And they look for the same things in Beijing and they get disappointed. So for me, since day one, that was my motto, and so that's why I love going around, meeting people, exploring the neighborhood. I loved watching the older women and men dance to their Tai Chi routines. I think another thing that I've learned during the pandemic, so this was 2020, we were stuck in our community. I would jog around in the mornings. I see a lot of the older people really jogging as well, exercising, not just staying home and taking care of their grandkids, but they're doing a lot of strenuous activities that normally people in the Philippines wouldn't really do, like senior citizens wouldn't really do. So I like that. I like the energy and the vibe that you can get even from the older people.
You definitely have to adjust when you go to another country. And like
Yeah.
what Ruby said, keeping an open mind. So be prepared to, see different stuff compared to what you were used to before. So when we were in Beijing, I think all of us, had an open mind coming in and just soaking in the culture and the people. Coming from the Philippines, you can hear a lot of, you know, things, some good and some bad about the locals or the people who live in China. But
Mm-hmm.
when we got there, honestly, for me, it was a really, really good experience. I had really good experience with people. And I mentioned before, we also have an IE and we lived together for about 2 years. So me and my son, and then our IE, and she's Chinese, and we had a good, we had a good relationship in the home, and the dynamic is also really nice. And I was explaining to a lot of people that not all the things that you hear about the Chinese is true, because for my experience, it was really good. I met a lot of good people. They're very, very helpful, as long as you know also how to adjust.
Yeah, what I notice about the locals in Beijing, in particular, or maybe the whole of China, is one of their cultures is when you're a part of their circle, if you're their friend or relative, they will treat you as family. So I was able to experience this. I've made friends, and those friends treated me like part of their family, like my learning partner at work. We would hang out even after work, and up to this day we would still contact each other. So they became like family, and that's their culture. If you don't know them, maybe you will find that they're a bit rude in terms of the way they speak, but once you befriend them, they will treat you as family. So I still keep on contact with them, like Catherine, Corina, and the rest of my Chinese friends in Beijing. So That's the thing that I've observed with regards to their culture.
And just like anywhere in the world, I think we've been to other countries. You need to be aware of the culture. Yes, just like what
Mhm.
you said. So if you're not aware of the circle thing, maybe you'll find it challenging. But if you're aware of the culture, or if you know the language, that's one thing I've noticed. They will be friendlier to you because for example, there's a language barrier. Of course, it will be hard for them to help you or communicate with you. And also, if you're outside, you don't just expect strangers to help you. Like it's anywhere in the world, like even in the Philippines, sometimes it's hard. But then again, if you know their culture and if you can speak the language and if you're friendlier,
Mhm.
people can help you and people will help you.
Mhm.
So it's good.
How about Ina? What are some of the customs of the locals that you have observed?
Of course, like now we're living in Shanghai,
Hmm.
and compared to Beijing, I feel.
All right, guys. So Ruby has to leave because she has something to do. She has a class. So we'd like to thank Ruby for joining us. Ruby Caymo for joining us here on the podcast. So we're gonna continue with Ina Rodriguez regarding her thoughts about the customs of locals in Beijing.
Yes. So what I like about, as I mentioned earlier, I like how active old people are here in Beijing, in China generally. They have lots of activities like dancing. Um, but personally, I feel like living now in Shanghai and in Beijing, I feel like the people in Beijing are warmer than here. So I connected with them more than here in Shanghai. Or maybe I am living here for just a year. And so, just I agree with you, Regin, that the people in Beijing, when they find you as a friend or you belong to their group, they will treat
Mhm.
you as a family and it will never go away. So, I found a family in Beijing. So, that's something very, very important and important for me.
Yeah, I don't know, but based on my observations, I've been living in Beijing. I haven't lived in other cities, but visiting the southern part of China, I feel like the northern uh, Chinese are, in my observation, kinder compared to the ones in the south, just based on my observation. Obviously, we guys love living in Beijing, but what exactly is about Beijing that we love living in there? Any
I
Mm.
can
stories you
Yeah,
want to share? Yeah, Sigi?
I can start a while ago that I mentioned that I've been saving for the advantages of living in Beijing. Actually, there are many. There's a lot. But the convenience of living in Beijing and in China, I think it's kind of hard to match, especially for coming from, let's say, we all came from the Philippines and you're, Regin,
Mhm.
you're in the Philippines. It's very convenient here and it's getting really convenient, I think, each year. Because when we arrived in Beijing way back in 2014, everything was different. But now everything is cashless. We pay bills online. You use your phone for the subway, you use your phone for everything. So it's very convenient. And for example, our job requires us to purchase things online. And I would always tell
Mhm.
Ina that everything is online. We just have to search. So it's very convenient. They really have everything online, which is really nice because as you all know, the Taobao or from the Alibaba company, it's the biggest
Yes.
online and selling platform in the world, even bigger than eBay. So it's really nice to have everything delivered at your doorstep, not just shopping goods, but even medicines, even food, water, groceries. If it's raining, if the weather is bad, you can literally order everything, and it's very fast and efficient.
Mhm.
Yes, that's really um, convenient. Again, the transportation, moving around, traveling. I wanna mention even the contact tracing because it's pandemic, and
Yes.
here it's easier because they can really trace you for if you're a national citizen, if you're a Chinese local, you have your ID. If you're a foreigner, they can trace your movement. So it's easier for them because of their technology. Using phone, we always show our health code. We need that to prove that you're well. Even the vaccination, it's just online, so we have that in our phone.
Oh,
Like in the Philippines, it's kind of different, and we are about to apply, right, Ina, for our vaccination passport
okay.
that we can use maybe even in other countries. So the convenience of living here.
Okay, how about
So,
you?
like what Siggy mentioned earlier, like the online shopping, um, when we moved to Korea, I can remember that I ordered some stuff from Taobao to be shipped to Korea. That's how convenient shopping online in Beijing, in China is. And also, it's cheaper. So if you compute with shipping together and stuff, it's still cheaper and more convenient. In all the places that I've lived in, China has the best technology when it comes to uh, doing stuff online, like what Siggy mentioned. So that's really a good pro. And then I think working for the company gave us a lot of good opportunities that we can count as a pro to living overseas, to living there.
How about you, Ina?
Yes, here I wrote down like top three.
Wow.
No, no, I wrote like just like what Sigi mentioned. It's very efficient. Like the being in a cashless city and like moving to Philippines again. It's so hard for me to like carry a lot of cash. But here in Shanghai, it's like transaction from bank to bank. You can just do it on your phone. I think in the Philippines, it's also the same right now, right?
There are some banks,
There
yes,
Yeah.
are
but
some
here
banks.
it's still easy. We don't have to line up
Why
and
not?
pay everything at the bank.
Yes, and like food delivery, I think like also in the Philippines is also happening right now. And number two is like the transportation. Like transportation is Didi is very efficient.
Yes,
Also biking
that's my
around,
favorite.
you can get like if you want to bike around the city, you can just scan and rent a bike. Like it's everywhere. Like you can see it from every roads. Like you can see, like you can just bike around if you want to go to one place to another. So transportation system here is very good. The last one is like job opportunities for teachers. I think like here in China, compared to other Asian countries when it comes to teaching. I think like China gives better pay, I guess, and better, um, how can I
I
say,
think it depends on the
Job
company.
offer also
I think better job
for
offers.
English teachers, for
Yeah,
educators.
yes, better job offers for teachers. Not only for English teachers, but as
Mm,
well as
mm,
other teachers in the education industry. I think this is like a good place for if you're a teacher to teach. Yes.
yes, and
So
I know
that's
I didn't cover, but I was hoping actually they would cover. But actually, Regin, you can cover the security here in
the
Beijing
security in Beijing.
and safety. You can.
Yeah, you guys were mentioning convenience, and I've realized this in 2019 because living in Beijing since 2014, we don't realize how convenient it is until we go to another city. And in
Yeah.
2019, I went to Hong Kong with my siblings, and when I was in Hong Kong, they don't accept WeChat Pay during the time there, so you have to pay cash. You take a taxi, you have to pay cash, and they don't have Didi or the Chinese Uber
Okay.
during the time in Hong Kong. Maybe they have Uber, but it doesn't work for foreigners. So
Mm.
we ended up always taking the normal taxi and paying cash. And
It's
whenever we go out, we
expensive.
always have to have these coins and bills. And I've just realized how convenient living in Beijing is. Imagine, guys, in Beijing, you don't have to touch any cash or coins at all. You
Mm.
can pay using your phone, even going to wet markets or the ones on the street everywhere. And you guys have mentioned Didi or the Chinese Uber. you can basically get it reserved. I always travel, so what I would do is I would reserve a Didi or the Chinese Uber for the next day from a flight. If it is early morning, it will be there. You don't need a car in Beijing, so it's that convenient and
Mhm.
it's very organized. If you look at the system in terms of the zoning, this is residential area. The apartments are nice. The cleanliness. I've been to a lot of cities and they say Singapore is clean, all this stuff. But if you look at Beijing, it's not that far from Singapore in terms of cleanliness, to be honest, especially if you go
Mhm.
downtown. And but most of all, yeah, the convenience is just amazing, transportation, but most of all, the security. I think Beijing is one of the safest cities I've been to in the world. Crime rate
Yeah,
is so low, almost
same for
non-existent.
me.
Yeah, because when you do something there, they would find out. Big Brother would find out. So people there do, people there
Big
don't want to
Brother's always
do.
looking,
Yeah,
watching.
that's why people there don't want to do something stupid because you will get caught, and they really implement the law. So safety and convenience are these topmost things why I love living
Yeah.
in Beijing on top of all of those restaurants that we've mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course, living in the city is not it's not perfect, of course. So for the sake of our listeners, how about the cons of living in Beijing as a traveler or even as a resident like what we were? What are the cons that you guys experience or any stories that you want to share?
Beijing is actually very overwhelming. And we've
Mhm.
met many people who didn't survive Beijing. We've met many foreigners who didn't survive Beijing because we stayed there for a long time. So Beijing is not for someone who easily gets overwhelmed, or because Beijing is a very dynamic city.
Offended. Yeah.
Yes, Beijing can be very crowded. Remember our first subway ride to work? It's very
Yeah.
crowded. It's Beijing is
During rush
noisy.
hour.
Yes, rush hour is really tough. Whether you're taking the train or whether if you have to endure the traffic. Yeah, it's so one thing that's hard. That can be hard for people is the flexibility because Beijing will require you to be very flexible. Even with the
Mhm.
food, with trying Chinese food, maybe it can be hard for foreigners to try, but you need to be open about like trying. You need to be adventurous because maybe you'll end up not enjoying your stay if you're very picky or if you have very high standards when it comes to everything. So it's like you need to be open minded and be flexible, which can be hard.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the disadvantages of living in Beijing.
All right,
Yeah. Like
just a little
go
disclaimer to
ahead.
our listeners: we're not saying this to kind of like belittle Beijing. It's just
Yes.
to prepare you guys when you live in this city. It's not belittling the city. Just a little disclaimer to our listeners. All right, Summer.
I remember when we were in our second home and we were, I don't know, third home in Beijing, and we were living with our ayi. In our community, there's a lot of the older generation, so the grandparents. There's a lot of them in our community, and they would get in your business. For example, if you have a baby, I remember this. I took my baby out to, because in the Philippines, we take the babies outside in the morning to get them some sun. So I took my baby out, and then one of the grandmas in our community, she kept saying, "Oh, why is he not wearing socks? Why is he just wearing a t-shirt? He needs to wear a light coat or a jacket." And I remember this grandma would always say that when she sees us in the elevator. And then in the playground, I remember one time I took my son to the playground and he was wearing a sandal and shorts. And then everyone was looking at me because it was quite chilly. Well, yeah, a little bit chilly, but not really cold. But, they want the kids to be covered up and more comfortable and really, really warm. So, in terms of stuff like that, they can get in your face. And if you're not, um, it can come off as people being in your business like that. But um, they only mean well. They just want to make sure that the kid is safe and warm and stuff like that and comfortable. So that's one thing that can be a con to people coming in. I remember my husband was telling me that, oh, why is everyone staring at him? Because he's really tall, and he's African American, so his skin is darker than what people are used to seeing. So, and I explained to him that, oh, it's not because they want to be rude, but it's just that they don't see, a lot of foreigners in this area, or, they've never seen a guy as tall as you, something like this.
Mm.
So that can be a con for some people, especially if you're very new.
Yeah,
Um,
especially Westerners. I would have to say this because Westerners are not used
Mm.
to like their personal space being invaded.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially
And
Westerners.
um, people can get, you know, in your face
Yeah.
without them knowing that they already are invading your personal space.
How about Ina?
for me, one is language barrier. Like
Good one.
first, like when I was new, um, I wanted to buy like dumplings or like the buns, like the bun,
Siopao.
like
Bows,
that,
Bowser.
the
the
bows,
bauza.
Bowser.
bowser.
And I remember I even translated like how much is this on my phone? Like how much is it? And then the guy was saying like this, like this. And I was like, what is that? And like doing
Yes.
like this all the time. It's like, is he really making fun of me or is he? But I translated how much is this on my phone in Chinese. And like for a long time, for my like first few 6 months, I was like 6 months, 6 months or 6 weeks. I was like, what is this? What is this? The guy was saying this to me. That's so rude. I was telling myself that there's some, but I just realized that the numbers in China is like six is this, right? Six, seven, eight, nine,
Eight.
and 10. And so I just realized that that is something that like a disadvantage like language barrier and like there's gestures before coming to China. You need to know these things so that you have like a smooth transition. One thing as well for me is the air quality in Beijing, but now it's getting better and better and better. But my first 4 years in Beijing, it was very tough for the because of the air pollution. But until now, we still are experiencing that, but not as worse as than before.
Yeah, for me, I have to mention this that one of the things I love about Beijing, by the way, I forgot is it's four seasons. So growing up in the Philippines, we don't have four seasons, but in Beijing, you can
Mhm.
experience four seasons, and you have different activities for each season. Like you can experience skiing, going to the park during spring or during fall, enjoying the foliage, the different color of leaves, and in the summer, you can wear shorts and enjoy flip flops, something like that. So that's one thing I enjoy
Mhm.
living in Beijing. And one of the things that I don't like about Beijing, apart from the air that was mentioned already, is people don't line up. They they
Yes.
don't line up and people talk loudly. Like I think it's
Hello,
part
come
of their
here.
culture.
Hmm.
So
Go
in the
ahead.
subway, on the train, you would notice that people would jump in the line. So that's one thing that kind of like annoys me once in a while living in Beijing. But I have to say this that it's improving, especially with the younger generation. You can really see the difference between the young generation and the old generation of Beijingers. Hello, Yoshi. Good morning.
Good
Hello.
morning.
Hello, guys.
All right, guys, we're almost about to end. Wow, that was a wonderful conversation regarding Beijing, our second home for 5 years, over 5 years, and it's been
Hmm.
very nice, nostalgic, reminiscing the past and reliving those wonderful memories. So thank you guys for your time. Thank you for being here. And before we end, any final words to our listeners, or even maybe tips for those who want to live in Beijing?
For me, one tip is to always have an open mind. Have an open mind so you're able to see the good stuff that comes with living overseas, living in Beijing. It gives you a good experience. I think if you have an open mind, you will have a better experience.
Experience. Yes. Immerse yourself to the culture. I think that is something that you would enjoy. Also, just like I mentioned, learn about the culture, language, like simple, basic language, Mandarin before you come here, and know the rules of Beijing when it comes to like visas and legalities of your job before you come here, and know that you know it thoroughly before you sign it or before you come here in
Mm-hmm.
China. So those things.
And you know, moving to Beijing and living in Beijing really changed us all, and it gives us different life perspectives. So we learned a lot, and we experienced a lot because of moving to Beijing. So I'd say that don't be afraid to go outside of your comfort zone. It's very rewarding. Yes, and now because there's pandemic and it's been hard to travel. Once everything is okay, once the world already once the world is already healed, yes, maybe we would cherish traveling more. So go out there, travel out there. You will learn a lot about yourself, about the world around you, about the culture. So yes, be as adventurous as Regin who traveled the world, and you will reap the benefits of that.
True.
One of the best things to experience a place is not just to stay there for a long time and interact with the locals, but to actually live there and have an apartment. And that's what we did. And I can see the result. I can see in terms of our perspective of things, and we have grown just by living abroad. So my tip to our listeners out there is take the plunge, take the opportunity to live abroad, especially in your 20s when you're young, before actually really settling down. You have to go abroad without regards to not even thinking about the monetary or financial benefit, just the experience of living abroad. So maybe you would say, "Oh, I don't need that money. Why would I live abroad?" It's not about the money. When you live abroad, you grow, you learn about different culture, your perspective become wider. So take the plunge, live abroad, whether that be in Beijing or in other cities, Shanghai, Hong Kong, or in the US. But in terms of living in Beijing, I would have to say that you have to adapt to the technology in terms of computer or IT. China is one of the fastest growing IT technology in the world nowadays. So you have to adapt because it's mostly based on your phone. That's I've learned it the hard way because in the beginning I didn't want to adapt. So you just keep on telling me you have to download this app, download this app. I don't want to download the DD or the Uber app, but then I've realized that it saves a lot of time. So be familiar with the app or the phone technology in general. So guys,
And
once
sorry
again,
before
okay,
sorry
Siggy.
before we end, before you say your closing, and we would all agree, maybe the five of us, that the best years of our lives, right, were those years while we were in Beijing, right?
Yes.
Completely
Yeah,
agree. Completely
definitely
agree. A lot of factors work because of the company that we work for, Walt Disney, and the city, and of course you
agree.
guys together, our
Yeah,
friendship.
living there
Yes.
together.
Yeah. All right, guys. Once again, thank you for joining me, Siggey, all the way from Shanghai, Siggey and Inah, Summer, all the way from Texas, USA, and Ruby from Manila, Antipolo, Rizal. Is it Antipolo? But Rizal
Yes,
province
that's
in
right.
the
Kainta.
Philippines. Kainta, and this has been your host, Regin Reyno, coming from Bukidnon, Philippines. Thank you guys for tuning in. And before we leave you, I'm gonna leave you with this travel quote. Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow mindedness. And many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all of one's life, by Mark Twain. All right, thank you guys. Till the next episode.